2020. For those who do not know, Battle Bosses or Gen Con, due to the COVID experience, was semi-canceled. Welcome, Max. Semi-canceled.
Whoa.
And those who are exhibitors are able to do kind of an online version of Gen Con for the summer. And this is that. And so if you go to Gen Con's website, you can kind of get in there. You have to have a badge, and there might be some process of doing that. Michael can maybe explain that at some point. But basically, we're doing live streams of Battle Bosses content. This is a game we kickstarted late 2018 that comes out this fall. And so we were going to do a big launch thing at Gen Con this year, but because of COVID, our production schedule was delayed, and then obviously Gen Con isn't happening, so we're doing just a bunch of streams. This morning we did this big kickoff. We announced a bunch of new stuff, and then just throughout the next 4 days, we're going to be doing live streams of Q&As, podcasts, interviews, and a bunch of live gameplay. And so we're just doing a consistent live stream experience during Gen Con. So today, or this specific stream is going to be specifically about the production schedule, where we are at. There's definitely been, as far as our communication with our Kickstarter backers, we could have been maybe a little bit stronger, and so we are kind of doing this to kind of talk through all those different things and walk through any stuff that we want, any questions people might have, as well as where we are at on production. And then this video gets posted on the Kickstarter, so if you're not able to make it to the chat, hopefully this video helps walk you through a little bit more of a detailed understanding of how we got here, where we're at now, et cetera, et cetera.
If you did not back the Kickstarter, but you have heard us talk about Battle Bosses before because you're fans of us from other places, or you just found Battle Bosses on the Gen Con website, this is still good for you because we're going to give you some details on like where the game is at now and how you'll be able to get it and when, which is important for anybody who's interested in the game. So.
And right now, you can go, if you go to kesco.shop, you can pre-order it. So it comes out this fall, this November. I will be delivering backers first, so in October, and then people that pre-order it will then get their chance to get the copies that they pre-order now on it. And so you'll get early access. You'll be some of the first people to get access to Battle Bosses, which will be really cool. And
we're excited about the game, so it's cool to think that people will be getting it soon. Finally,
we just got the awesome first paint runs on the sculpts, and they look amazing. So we're really excited, and hopefully you guys are as well. Hello from Latin America. And then let me bring up. So I guess the first part of the conversation I do want to have, I guess it's really quickly, Michael, why don't, for people that are maybe don't know how to get into Gen Con, is there a way to get access to that right now, or is it purely just you should be going through our Twitch and everything else?
Well, if you go to our booth at Gen Con, the best place to go from there is to Twitch. There is a link there. This stream is embedded in our Gen Con booth. There is a link to come here. And honestly, if anybody went to our Gen Con booth, I would really hope that they would click over and come here, because this is where you can chat with us live, and this is where we're, showing off all of our content. If you want to see like our little bio and our pictures at our Gen Con booth, I guess that's fine. But this is really where the action is at, and if you're already here, then what else is there to see?
Yeah. So to introduce everyone to the people that are on, I'm Alex Kessler. I was the designer. I'm the owner of Kesco, and then a designer of the game Battle Bosses with Michael Grothy, who's to my left, but maybe you're right. I don't know how this works.
It looks like you do not need to be signed in to see Gen Con booths. You just go to gencon.com/looking-glass, and you can see the exhibit hall. We are somewhere as a medium small sized booth by Ultra Pro in the bottom right. I guess if we call it north, south, east, west, we're in like the southeast. I don't know how that works, but something like that.
South, yeah, that works.
East by southeast.
I will say that
yeah.
For some reason, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild informed me that I'm terrible at west-east in a digital space. Like I'm really good at it in like real life, but like for some reason,
is it because you orient yourself using the ocean?
Yeah, I think it's and also because I'm on the West Coast, so like I'm used to the West Coast being the center of my existence. We'll find out later.
Right. Yeah. West Coast is easy because it's like, where is the water relative to me? That's west.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And then like the sun, like that helps too to some extent. Those are my two ways of easily figuring out directions.
It's the way to do it, unless you have a compass.
And unless you're in a car, who does? So yeah, continuing introducing people. Alex Kessler, creator of the game, host Master of our podcast. Michael Grothy, head designer for Battle Bosses and developer and all around designer of Battle Bosses with myself. We also have Sam, who helps with kind of distribution and sales side of the Kess Games line and Kess Games in general, or Kess in general. And then without a video feed, but Max, who was the main on the graphic side, did a lot of the graphic design work and found all the kind of different artists we used with and coordinated with the factories and kind of the whole on the more design from a visual perspective part of what made Battle Bosses. And so today we're going to kind of go through a little bit of some of the updates, what we have available to show everyone, and also just if we get people in chat asking questions, we can help there as well. So the first thing I want to do is do like another brief overview of the rulebook. We did this in our earlier morning call, but this is much more about production. And what's cool is that this rulebook is brand new. We finalized, it was the last piece of graphical needs we needed for production. So last night we finalized it just in time for GenCon, and also it's because we had to wait for the other graphic elements that are inside of it to be approved by the factory. We were waiting to finalize it for obviously down to the wire. But there's a lot of cool stuff in it. First, you get kind of the first look at all 8 bosses and everything that's included with each boss, including their tokens, their specific map tiles, dice, and power-up cards or power-up tiles and everything. These are the 3D models. These aren't pictures of the sculpts. This is more what the sculpts look like. Now, this Nightmare is bluer than the final one will be. You can see it's a little bit more dark purple, and that just has to do with these are the first print test runs, and we learned that if you put that bright blue on Nightmare, he looks like a Spider-Man character. Kind of continuing down, you can see it does come with in the
Alex,
deluxe
are
version.
you trying to show the stream something?
Oh, I am trying to show the stream something.
Okay, cool. You were talking about you see this, you see that. I wasn't sure if that was like in the near future you will see.
No. I forgot to turn that on. Where is this it? There it is. No, it's like weirdly out of line.
Hey!
And we do this, and then we move this down, move this, oh god, move that up, and here we go. All right, cool, we will continue, and it's going to be blocking me and Max's faces, but that's fine, because I'm talking, and Max doesn't have his camera on. Cool, so continuing, sorry, when I mentioned that you can see all the different stuff included in the deluxe box, now you can see it on camera. You can see all of the different bosses, you can see the different tiles and cards included, and all the stuff that comes. This is also, if you were to buy an individual boss, instead of using the deluxe box, you would get each of these individually. So what you can kind of see under Mechabot, for instance, you have the deck of cards, the dice, the dashboard tiles, the hex map tiles, and all the different tokens, including minions and landmines and all of that stuff for Mechabot, all come in a single battle boss box. And then if you wanted to play the game, your friend would buy their own, and then you would link them up and battle each other. This is kind of a breakdown of what's in the arena mode. So this is the all-in with all the arena mode pieces. And so this also includes all of the different neutral camps that you need to be able to play arena mode, the 2-sided board that includes both 3v3 arena mode gameplay as well as 1v1, which we'll get into a little bit more of a preview on that in a second, and then obviously the rulebook. So this is a picture of the rulebook in the rulebook. And I assume if you were able to open that, there'd be a rulebook inside of it. So there's an infinite loop. Going through the rules, this is the layout of 1v1, where you have the 9 tiles from each boss and everything set up to begin with. Kind of explanations on how the resource mechanic of the game, the dice work, and kind of the different functions and different symbols on there. Breakdown on abilities, how to play cards, and the different types of cards, upgrade with subtypes, and then effects. A breakdown on combat. And then going into arena mode, there is a glossary at the back that some terms become a little bit more easy to know if you look those over very quickly at this point. And it goes over the bases and how bases work and what they look like on the map. How the bosses have different cards for arena mode. You can see in the top right corners of each tile, there'll be a different thing. For the most part, it's just that their max health is different, though they do have, some of them do have slightly different ultimate abilities and growth serum, or cantrip abilities that work better in these modes. You have the map itself. So this is a map in the zone. So there's a fog of war effect in arena mode. It made it so that just some champions can't just, or not champions, some bosses can't damage just from so far away that it becomes unmanageable. So basically you cannot target a zone that is outside of the 2 adjacent zones to yourself. So if you were in the wastes, you can hit anyone in the hot zone or cool zone, or if you're in the cool zone, you can hit anyone in the alpha spawn or wastes. It also means that you cannot damage bases until you get into their spawn zone. So a base can only be targeted by bosses that are right next to it. So you have to get up there and in person to be able to do damage to a base. The way that this mode works is bosses have lower life totals, but when they die, they respawn. And the goal of the game is to destroy the base. When you destroy a boss, you do damage to the base. So slowly that is a way to eventually win the game. Or if you can get your team into their base and start doing damage to it directly, that's the other way to kind of win the game in arena mode. This is a breakdown on neutral monsters. So neutral monsters are, if you look at this map, they live in these corners and, within the wastes zone. And those summon different monsters. You have to fight them. Sometimes you defeat them to gain a reward. And then sometimes you defeat them to get a physical pet that you get to control in-game, and they all have special abilities that you gain control of as a team. This then goes over kind of the order of damage. This is an important feature that we figured out a lot, actually, with help at testing at events like GenCon, where people would break down kind of like, oh, if I have a minion on a pet, but there's a boss there, how does that work? And so this helps kind of just line out who takes damage first when you do damage to a space. Obviously, the credits. And then a sneak preview of Battle Bosses Wave 2. Here's 3 of the key artworks and characters from that game. 2 of these are bosses, and one of them is actually a minion. And just kind of a sneak peek at what's coming up in the next wave of Battle Bosses. Hey, Facebook user. The estimate plan for Battle Bosses right now is to be shipped to backers in October. The plan is to have the shipment land in our warehouse probably by October 15th is currently what the schedule is, and then the amount of time it takes from that point on to have our backers get fulfilled through our fulfillment company. So it'll be sometime between end of October and beginning of November is when Kickstarter backers will be receiving their battle bosses. That currently is what the production plan is in line. And a little bit of today is kind of walking through what has been done since last we talked to Kickstarters and Kickstarter backers and everything else on all the graphic stuff that we've just submitted to the factory, and where we're at with the factory. And this is a little bit of a preview of the next bosses. And as I mentioned, the back of the rulebook here is the Glossary of Terms. So we finished this rulebook last night. This was something that definitely took a lot of work on everyone's team. Yeah, as stuff evolved, making sure terminology. I personally am a person who should never be trusted to spell check. So big shout out to everyone on the Kess team who can spell and doesn't put capital letters in the middle of sentences for no reason, apparently. So that's the rulebook, and so we're going to kind of go over other stuff as we go on. Does anyone want to say anything about the rulebook before we move on to the next step on the team? No? Cool. All right, we're going to go into here. The next thing I want to go to, because we already started talking about it, are the map tiles. Here's the, oh, these are just so massive that you have to open it here. So I did do that. We're going to bring this down. We're going to bring it over, and hopefully it's going to be aimed correctly. Bring it around town. There we go. All right. So this is really the first time we're showing the world this. This is the 4-player version of arena mode. So I'll open up 6v6 as well, because I think that's the easier one as a start through. We're having fun.
3v3 for a total of 6 people.
Yes. So
6v6 would be even wilder.
Yeah, that would take too long. It would be unfun. I do not recommend 6v6 gameplay. 3v3 is definitely the max. So this is the 3v3 arena mode map. This is the final version of it. You can see there are 2 bases, one on the top, one on the bottom. 3 spawn spaces for each player on their team to pick where they go. The way this works is each team picks 3 bosses. You can pick any 3 bosses, so if you have 2 copies of a boss, you could even do mirror matches. Though in the deluxe version of the game, it only comes with the main 8, so there's no repeats. And you pick your team, you pick your squad. Each player can have a different role on your team and different goals. And then every turn, each team takes a turn going. You can move around the board. I am going to be able to zoom in, hopefully, with the power of this software. And then you can see here, this is where you would start. 20 health. Once a base takes 20 health, you win the game. Here's different spawn points. There's reminder text everywhere to make sure if you just forget anything, you know how to kind of solve those issues. These are void spaces, so you cannot go through these spaces. You have to go around, so they're like islands that are in your way and obstacles. Within the waste, there are 4 neutral camp spaces, and we'll show you the finalized version of the neutral camp monsters. You have 4, 1 on each side, and then 2 in the middle. In here, you have neutral monsters that spawn. You can fight to gain benefits. And then going into the other side, you have the different base zones for the other team as well, plus their reminder text and the map. Max, can you go over a little bit on just the artwork for this map and who we worked with in the process and everything there? You are muted. I don't know if you... Max?
Oh. Hey, my screen froze for a second.
Sorry, no problem.
So, following up, what were you saying?
So we're currently looking at the giant arena map and wanted to go over a little bit on the process of how we came up with the map artwork. Like what? Because I know the artist we worked with.
Oh yeah, the artist is great. This is Henning. Henning did a lot of stuff for Fantasy Flight, as well as some things for Cool Minis or Not. He's very well known for doing specifically map tiles and map boards, and a lot of the ideas that that the team had together was to create this big map that was like all encompassing of different worlds combined together. And we kind of started off with just giving him references, saying that, okay, well, this section we kind of want it to have like kind of like that coastal pirate kind of theme, and then we want to mesh with a little bit of like an enchanted forest that leads into mountains. And but the most important thing was, and I guess the most difficult part was trying to get that the waste area in the middle, the void, because trying to combine all these different worlds together and showing that almost like that portal kind of like here's like where the darkness and the shadows and all that kind of like combines and pulls out from the world. That was very interesting. Henning did a great job with it. We started off with just brainstorms and references, and then it just kind of led into like sketches, initial sketches. And I remember us going back and forth with him saying, hey, we kind of want to show more of the void taking over certain areas. And he started going into that, and then giving us a lot of details, so then we're able to zoom into certain areas to make those map tiles, because as you can see with a lot of the bosses, they're specifically themed for their worlds. And so based on the details of Henning's artwork, we were able to zoom in and get every bit of that detail for all the 9 map tiles or hex tiles per boss. So it was a great experience. It took about 5 times back and forth, but we were able to flesh it out completely, and it looks great.
Yeah, and you can kind of see, and I'm touching upon different things as you're talking, and we'll go through, this is the Ryu-inspired area, kind of based on more of a feudal Japan style world. It kind of bleeds into an Egypt world, which is much more of a sneak peek of next year, or the next wave of bosses. There is an Egypt-themed world kind of that we want to touch upon. Here's Futropolis, where both Mechabot and Doxplosion kind of come from, where you have kind of more of a pollution-focused area, different outskirts to the city. the island in the middle and other different cityscapes of the future. If you kind of come over to the top over here, you see this is more of the land that Grakthar and Captain Boat come from. So you have a lot of this like coastal pirate themed island space over in the corner. And then you start getting into more farms and villages as you come inland and move away from the ocean. Just bring a little bit over here. The zoom is like very sensitive, so I apologize. We can see that it like gets very granular in detail. Like we can get pretty in, and it'll look like you can get right into the houses.
Very detailed. Looks really good.
Which we love and are really happy with how it all came out. And then over here you have more of an enchanted forest where Fae Empress harks from, like abandoned castles and mystical trees and everything else. Something that is also cool is when we go over the terrain pack, which we'll go over in this as well, which is one of the add-ons that was part of the Kickstarter and will eventually be available at regular retail, is that a lot of these little different individual features end up becoming their own special ability lands in the land pack as well. So you can, I think this is there's a teleporting portal somewhere that I'm losing because it's smaller, but it's right here on the border. And so you can, that's one of the special abilities that lets you teleport between here and another land tile that you can get as well. And there's a bunch of other cool different features. And so we've been really excited about the map, and obviously the tiles look really great. And when we go over the land tiles, we can kind of show you those for the individual bosses, kind of have what borders they have, because each boss's tiles will come where one side will be kind of the full art version that doesn't have any kind of features, but then on the flip side we'll have more signature borders of that boss. Part of the reason we did that is because the art is so pretty that we want people to be able to see it. But also because we want to make sure that if I'm playing with Captain Boat and you're playing with Captain Boat, and we put our tiles together, we can kind of differentiate whose half is half by one person having their tiles flipped to one side and the other person's having their tiles flipped to the other, so that there's like a differentiation.
Also, it can be hard to tell whose tiles are whose, even just playing two different characters, since you have to put your tiles combined with the other person's tiles. Like if I was playing Captain Boat and you were playing Grakthar, and we both have kind of these coastal villages on our tiles, you can tell who belong to who because the backs have the border on them.
So now that we've kind of walked through the 3v3 6-player mode, I do want to show for the first time the 4-player mode. And so this is the obviously it's on the same world map, right? It's the same map, but what's different is more of the layout. So you can see it's a little bit of a tighter map, so it's kind of brought in the inside area is different. There's now only 2 neutral camps on each end of the map itself. There are still 3 spawn spaces, so you actually get to choose among the 2 players that are playing which spawn spaces that they would start in. You don't fill them all up. You just pick 2 of the 3 different spaces. Just based on the feature of how it interacts with the base, we wanted to make sure that it was a separated space. So it was easier just to give people those spaces than to figure out a different solution. And it's a definitely tighter space, so it's a little bit, and it's a quicker game mode, right? 3v3 has the same, each player still has to take a turn, so it's about 20 minutes per player. This brings the time down to about an hour and a half versus the 3-hour games we've had doing 3v3. So it's a much more tighter version of the arena mode experience. And one of the things we really love about this kind of game mode is the team comp build, right? Like because Battle Bosses, every deck is exactly what it is. There's no deck building. There's always kind of like, how can you be creative? And we were trying to think of what are game modes that we can come up that let people be a little bit more creative than they can be with the base game. And one cool thing about this is, a team that is Ryu and Mechabot is going to be a very different functioning team than Ryu and Grakthar. Or Nightmare and Fae Empress are going to be a much more control-y, tempo-based team comp than, say, Cthulhu and Doxplosion, which are going to be much more about kind of burst damage and building up resources. So it's definitely really cool how whatever team you kind of put together, you have a totally different world and can interact totally differently, which we really love about the game mode. Anything else? Anybody?
Sounds good.
Cool.
I mean, you're covering all the bases.
That's what I'm trying to do. All right, so the next thing we wanted to go over were the neutral camps, since we're just talking about arena mode at the moment. So let me bring up neutral camps 1. Hopefully this just loads. Here we go. So these are the neutral camps. So these are each of the different monsters. Let me just make this window smaller so it fits. There we go. These are all the different neutral camp monsters that you can end up fighting in the neutral camp spaces. And there's 2 real types of monsters. There's the ones that we call monsters, and there's ones that call pet monsters. And monsters are things that when you defeat them, they give your team, or they do some immediate benefit. Do they do damage to every space? They give you some type of resources. There's some type of immediate effect. And then pet monsters are ones that if you defeat them, you gain control of basically an assist character. And so now they are a piece that player who defeats it can control, using their energy to be able to control them and move them around the board, and they all have special abilities that help and move the game in different spaces. So these are the first 8, and then I'll bring up the next one. My favorite, personally, of all of them is Skywhale, and it's the best. It lets you, it's like a big bus. People can ride the Skywhale, and the art's really pretty.
Yeah, so whenever Skywhale moves, you can bring any allied units with you. So usually, if all 3 of our teammates wanted to move from one space to another, and then I also wanted to move my minions, we'd each have to spend an energy, and I'd have to spend an energy to move my minions. But with Skywhale, you spend 1 energy to move all 4 of those units. So Skywhale is very efficient. It's not really like a fighter. You just all hop on and ride it, which is cool.
Big fan of value. So these are the backs of the different neutral camps, and the idea behind these are purely it allows you to just have the neutral monsters face down, because eventually there's a reveal moment, and you also have to count down. Once you defeat one, there's 3 turns before the next one shows up, and this is a way to kind of keep track of that. It also allows you, if you want, from a space efficiency perspective, to kind of shuffle out the different neutral camp monsters at random and make decks, basically, or piles in each of the neutral camp spaces that'll be raised, and then as you reveal one, you can move them away and go to the next one below it. Neutral camps 1, 2. Oh, that was just the backs. Okay. Neutral camps 2. And then these are the other 8. So I believe there are 16 total. Max, you can correct me, but I believe that's correct. These are the other 8. One of the fun ones here is Jin. So Jin has the lowest max health of any neutral monster you'll fight, because kind of the idea is that you actually might damage it. You might just accidentally end up in the space with it when you reveal it. And it does do damage to every boss, including your team. So there's a little bit of a risk-reward with that one as far as gameplay goes, but it's definitely kind of a different way of playing. And then we'll also go to kind of all the neutral monsters as well, that the pet monsters you can grab. But yeah, those are the main 16. Is it in here? Here we go. Cool. And so then this is the different pets you can control. So as I mentioned, so when you gain control of a pet, these are the tiles you use over on the left side in play. So that's what you move around to show where it is on the map. And then you have one of these pet tiles to gain control and gain its abilities. And they have everything from Dwarf Knight, which teleports to any boss's space from your team to be able to protect them with its larger max health, or your opponent's team to start fighting opponents. So it's kind of a cool mole that travels around. Priestess is a healer. Portal Bots allows you to make minions on, anyone can make minions on its space, so it allows you to kind of have like a birthing pod almost. So wherever it is on the map, you can make a bunch of minions, because the whole team can start making minions on its space. So it's a cool move around thing, and they're all just like really fun different ways to add a new flavor to the game while you're playing arena mode and get a real benefit by defeating them. And then that's the back, so I don't think there's... Yep, so they're just double-sided. Cool. Deluxe box. Cool. All right, so that's kind of the neutral camp stuff that we wanted to go over. Rulebook we did already. Terrain pack is the other thing I wanted to quickly touch on at this point. Let me just drink some of this.
And The terrain pack, we don't actually have any rules for how to use it. We kind of just encourage people to, spice up your game with it. So they're the same size as the map tiles, so you could use them in 1v1. You could just kind of randomize the map if you want. Or you could, kind of Settlers of Catan style, where you shuffle everything up and then deal them out in a map. Or you could put them onto the 3v3 or 2v2 map, or you could use the tiles that you have to make something that's totally different. I mean, you could make, kind of Battle Boss's Final Destination, where you just do like one big strip of 3 across or whatever, and you sprinkle some terrain in. I mean, we kind of encourage people to play the way that they want to play and kind of do interesting stuff with the map and experiment with like different ways to play. Maybe you're doing teams not on the arena mode map, or maybe you're doing like secret teams where you're playing with like 5 people, and 2 of them, like, you have 2 people on a team, but one of them doesn't know like who their teammate is, so it's like there's 3 secret people. And I don't know, there's like a lot of different stuff you can do, and the terrain tiles are like us kind of leaning into, you can make your own maps and do your own thing and kind of customize the game the way you want.
Yeah, and a lot of comments we get at every show when we were demoing was, is there stuff that does the map matter? What can we do with the map? What can we do to change effects, to do campaigns or other things? And the base map doesn't, right? It's meant more as like just a play field. But we realized that there is an opportunity in design space to come up with ideas that people can do, campaigns, different multiplayer variants, etc. And so we wanted to give kind of different cool effects that you can build with the different terrain tiles, and have come up with some really cool ideas. There's ones, these are a lot of the ones that like give abilities, right? You can't, so like the sea, you can't end a turn in that space. So you can go through it, but if you end up there, you have to move back to the space. You can't end there. You have stuff like the swamp, that it costs 1 extra energy to leave that space, so you can kind of get stuck in it. Deserts, where if you enter that space, your turn ends. You have to either time it, so if you want to be in that space, you do everything else you want to do on that turn, or you can accidentally end up there and then just your turn's over, and you have to kind of move on. And there's all this kind of cool little stuff there. The other thing we wanted to do was to make sure that there was if you were getting a terrain pack, if you get the terrain pack, you have pretty much all the tools you need to be able to build your own arena mode, right? It comes with multiple spawn points for neutral monsters. It comes with different base tiles that you can use to set up bases. And so what we wanted to do, and arena mode from the beginning has exactly enough tiles, depending on how many bosses are playing, for 4-player or 6-player, that you can make it out of the tiles that come with bosses. You can build that layout without having to have the board. This allows you to kind of include different callouts like bases and spawn points to keep track of stuff. So that's something we wanted to be able to provide. Or
also with arena mode, you get all the tiles for every boss. So you could even build your own arena mode board and put the bases wherever you want. You could have like some type of 4-player game where each person is defending their own base, or you could do 3 teams of 2, and you could put spawn points wherever you want. I mean, that's kind of the point of the terrain pack. We wanted to provide some kind of like utility things that you could build your own arena mode, or build your own game mode that involves neutral monsters or involves bases or whatever.
And make it completely modular.
Right. Like modular is something that we love, and so we wanted to make sure that there were different tools out there. So this will be available on the store as we get closer to delivery on Kess Shop, and then is also available to all Kickstarter backers through the backer kit. And then
we recognize that like not every player is interested in this, and so there's no point in having like a bunch of extra tiles that most people aren't going to use that come with every single boss. So it's like a separate add-on if that's the type of thing that you're into.
Correct. The other thing is the reason, for instance, the bases, you can see base A, C, B, and D, Ice Castle, Desert Temple, Imperial Palace, and Island Fortress, is what we wanted to do is give like, if you were to do the Settlers of Catan style where you shuffle it all together for 4-player, we thought it would be cool to also have just like random starting points for your boss. So each player would pick which base would be there ahead of time, and then you would shuffle all the tiles together and lay them out at random in a map, and then wherever those bases are, that's where your boss shows up. So it's possible that like Imperial Palace and Ice Castle will be right next to each other, and so you're just going to start right next to Grakthar that game, and have to fight him as the game starts, or sometimes you'll just be farther away from everyone. And we thought that was like a cool way of additional play. And you can kind of see there's all these different ones. We mentioned the Magic Portal and Tech Portal. Those will teleport towards each other, so you can kind of go back and forth. and just like all these different places from around the map that are just like cool additional ways of playing. There's some tiles you get multiples of, but they're double sided, so each side is a different. You can kind of mix and match which ones you pick every time you play. Yeah, so that's the terrain pack. That's actually I think the first time we've revealed that in general, and so we're excited for people to get their hands on it and start coming up with cool game modes.
Yeah, I think we sent a Kickstarter update about it, but this is the first time that the public is seeing these terrain tiles.
Actually, I don't think we
if you
did
are not
terrain.
a Kickstarter backer.
I don't believe Kickstarter has seen the actual terrain tiles.
Oh, we didn't do one. I remember we
think
talked
so.
about it when we first got them. Okay, cool.
We did a write-up, but then we decided that we were changing the graphical look, and so they got delayed, and then it never got posted. So we will be posting a terrain pack update this week. That is on its own, but for this weekend, it will be part of this video.
Cool. Yeah, so you get a sneak peek at terrain. First look. World premiere of terrain.
Yep.
GenCon reveal, right?
Yeah.
Yes, GenCon reveal.
Max,
Oh, Alex,
Why you come to the Kess GenCon digital panel? Because you can get all
a lot. Yeah,
We are.
Yeah, we're going through the whole thing.
People got to see future bosses on here. Kickstarter hasn't seen those guys.
I hadn't seen those guys yet.
You work in the
I
building.
even got which one was the boss wrong.
Yeah, you failed the test.
I know, it was brutal.
Matt,
So Sam, the secret is that we wanted all the bosses to be big because like all the sculpts are the same size, and personally I thought it would be weird if it was just like a normal human woman who's like for some reason huge fighting like you know, a boat that's the same size as her.
No, Explosion
so
exists.
Explosion is big because she has a growth serum, right? So she's not a random human woman. But the witch, we were like, well, she could make herself big.
But then that's what
But it
Explosion's
would be
doing.
cooler if she was the minion, and then the boss is something else that's big. And
Yeah.
that will be a secret revealed whenever we end up coming out with the
Yep. We don't want to give
boss.
all the secrets away.
No, we're not giving all the secrets away. But like a slime monster can be big, and a sphinx it can be whatever size we want because it's a mythical creature. So
Yep.
Really quickly, I'm going to look at Alana's box for the individual box art, and everyone can kind of see a little bit of what it looks like when you're dealing with the packaging and what like the die lines will look like. But this is just what an individual box will look like in general. So you can see the boss will live in this window. You'll be able to see a boss, the full sculpt of the boss through the window pane. This is Nightmare, but I'll show this again.
yeah, art sculpts are very cool, and we think that, you know, a lot of people are going to see them and be drawn to the product. And I know that, you know, I think that was a lot of what happened on Kickstarter, and we think that's going to be a lot of what happens in stores.
Yep.
So
You get a little bit of a
gotta
collect.
have the sculpt window.
Gotta have the sculpt window. You got the collect them all feature, the big splash art for Alana that's really nice, and kind of in here you have what's included with all the different dice and the minion and all that stuff we kind of showed earlier in the rulebook, and then you get a little blurb of her backstory, plus with the intent that it kind of gives a little bit of gameplay, right? Like we want something we like went back and forth to think really hard on throughout the whole process is how much of this game is how much do we want to tell people how to play, right? Like how much do we want to tell this is what this boss is for and this is what it does? And one of the problems with battle bosses, not problems, but one of the things that we're worried about is because it's a deck that never changes. If we were to tell you exactly what to do, there's no exploration, right? You don't get the feeling of learning how to play better in the game. You're just kind of told. So we decided to lean more into giving vague intentions on like what optimal strategies are with each boss. And letting people
I would
explore.
also say that we worked hard so that there wouldn't be optimal strategies.
Yes,
I don't want it to be like you look at your opening hand and you're like, oh, I didn't draw the card that, you know, is the best card in the deck and now I'm probably going to lose or whatever, right? Like that's no fun. So each boss can do a couple of different things. They can fill a couple of different roles depending on either who they're playing against in 1v1 or like what their role on the team is. Like, for example, Doxplosion, if you're on a team with like Grakthar, for example, your job might be to like heal Grakthar so he can deal a bunch of damage. But if Grakthar isn't on your team and maybe your team is like Ryu and Cthulhu, who are more like kind of sit back and do their own thing, then maybe you're actually the damage dealer and your job is to kind of get in there and use your gadgets to kind of like make some big explosions on the enemy team. And so we wanted to make sure that each boss could kind of do a few different things is one way to make each game feel different, right? And the other way is like, even if you're playing the same matchup over and over and you're like, oh, well, I'm Alana versus Grakthar, so what I need to do is build up a bunch of forest tokens and try and hide behind them. It's still going to play out a little bit different every time because there are cards in your deck that do different things. But yes, we didn't want to pigeonhole you too much. So we kind of give people a general overview on the box of like, this is what, this is the idea of the boss. This is what they are typically going to be doing. But you'll find when you're playing that, it changes from game to game and from matchup to matchup and from team to team or whatever.
Right. And for instance, like with Nightmare, the Nightmare crawls from the void, instilling fear and madness in the minds of all who witness its arrival, using discard abilities to erase the minds of enemies, while sending shadows to possess their minions, slowly turning their army or even their own abilities against them. We wanted to get across the fact that Nightmare's toolkit involves a lot of discard and benefits off of making their opponents discard cards. And then uses a lot of effects that like kind of steal their opponent's moves, right? You get to one of Nightmare's literal ultimate ability is use the ultimate ability of an opponent. So he has a very kind of mimic feel to him that we wanted to make sure we got across in the box, but we didn't want to be like, oh, you need to play these 2 cards. They're the best 2, or you don't. If you get these, you want to combo it with this. Like all of that stuff, we want people to explore and figure out. Maybe they come up with combos that we didn't even think about. We got a comment from another Facebooker. Hi there, looking forward to getting my Kickstarter set. It looks incredible. Thank you, fan. Facebook users, we can't see who you are. So if you come to Twitch, though, if you come to the twitch.tv/KessWiley, you can interact on chat, and we'll say hi and interact with you here. So if you're watching on Facebook or Periscope or even YouTube, coming to the Twitch chat is definitely the best way to kind of communicate with what's going on.
We have a following in a few different places, so we want to put the stream out far and wide, but we will be checking the chat most consistently on Twitch.
I do want to bring up the tiles very quickly, and just to kind of show what we were talking about them being double-sided. So these are the token sheets that will come in the game. Each box, you get, I think, 10 of these. But more importantly, you can see where on one side it's full art, right? There's just a black border for the bleed, but for the most part, it's like all artwork. But then on the other side, on the flip side, you get kind of the boss themed border. So this is Nightmare, so it's his like mist tentacle shadow space that's kind of flowing around him. He comes from the void. That's the space between worlds. That's where both him and Cthulhu both come from, that space. And so you can kind of see he's on the outskirts of each city, ready to start possessing bosses in the game. And then I'll just go through this quickly. I think I'm going to go to Ryu's next, because I do know that Max worked the hardest on this border, and if he wants to kind of go over that process, he can. So you can see Ryu kind of takes place in the area that we mentioned before. It's the more feudal Japan inspired spaces. And then we did this koi fish pattern, focusing on the red that is part of kind of Ryu's color focus. I do have a Ryu sculpt here. So some bosses we'll be previewing over on the streams of gameplay. Ooh,
I think, Alex, you actually have the image covering up your picture right now.
Oh,
So you might have to swap
I'm
that
and
over to
eyeing
show
one
off for
looking
you.
at Discord.
Yeah.
You're doing most of the talking. You should just put it over Sam and I.
that's fair. I will do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sweet. There we go. Yeah. Now y'all on stream can see that Ryu model.
Bye, Sam
Gorge.
and Michael. You're covered.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. So yeah. So Max, you're muted again. But that's why we're talking over if you can't hear us.
Yep. No, it's
So do you want to go through a little bit of like the challenges and some of the story behind getting these borders up and ready and ready to go?
I mean, it was just a lot of fun actually, coming up with the ideas of what borders fit what theme of the characters. Like for example, Nightmare, he has his shadowy kind of border, trying to incorporate the different colors and different patterns where it doesn't take away from Henning's artwork. It's just, and it can't be, it can't extend too much into it, and yet we want to make sure that it does feel like when someone looks at it, the color matches the theme of the character. Because you'll notice that some of the like even with the boxes and everything like that, like Nightmares, like he represents like the purple and blacks, and then Cthulhu is more the blues and the blacks. So then we had his be more like the tentacle-y kind of things. Ryu's was the most fun, kind of rebuilding a koi fish kind of look, using the whites and the reds, and just kind of make it show there's like this feudal Japan kind of movement to it. So it was just a lot of fun doing it and trying to figure out what was the best theme that we could do. But I guess the biggest challenge was trying to make sure it doesn't take away from the artwork, and just add it to it, and which is really cool because we have one side, like you said, that had the border and the other side that does not, so people can choose to do either or.
And I think that was actually a request we got at a show with our like demo ones.
Yeah.
They weren't double-sided, but we had the borders so that we could differentiate when we were setting up the boards to make sure that like Ryu had the kind of Japan looking area.
I think if I remember correctly how it happened is we didn't have borders, right? All of our tiles we have were just the full art versions, and we were trying to keep track of it and we're having trouble. And then, but we knew we were going to put these borders around it because we knew that we needed to differentiate them. And then, but people loved the back art so much, they loved how good just the full art versions of the tiles looked, that we wanted to make sure that they had that also available, right? That they had both versions. And as Magic players, who Magic has recently very much focused on kind of full art versions of cards, we wanted to also lean into that when we had an opportunity. So this is the place where we have the coolest artwork, so we wanted to make sure that was visible and noticeable.
Yes, that's right. I had it backwards. It wasn't that we had borders and people were like, can you remove them? It was that we didn't have borders and people thought that was really cool. So then when we added them, we made sure that we had.
Yeah. The amount of people that came over at Gamma and GenCon and Essen being like, oh, that map tile looks amazing. And we were like, okay, yeah, we need to make sure we have full art available to the bosses when they get them. So these are kind of just some of the different, let me go to Mechabot, I think has, so yeah, you can see here, it has, Mechabot has this more like sci-fi, almost like street tape, caution tape looking, but from the future. Borders, which we really like. Also, that each one comes with the landmine token. So he has a special token called landmines that he uses to kind of gum up the board because Mechabot likes shooting from a distance. He's much more of a sniper class, so we wanted to give him a little bit more things to protect himself with. And Mechabot, and we can go into. I really like. What I've left. Cthulhu we talked about. You mentioned Cthulhu, so we can do that really quick. And we can move past tiles really quick because I also want to show some like sneak peeks into. So yeah, Cthulhu is much more like tentacles versus like Nightmares, kind of smoke, both in void spaces. So one thing we needed to make sure to do for both of them is to try and differentiate a little bit. So you'll see Cthulhu is a little bit less shows the borders between edges. It is much more focused on actual void space with the kind of purple going into it. While Nightmare has more spaces kind of on the other side, where he's snuck in to the regular worlds and has kind of lived on the border for a long time, where Cthulhu is finally being released into the worlds as these worlds collide. Cthulhu, and then we go into the last one. Not the last one. I haven't gone through everyone. Grakthar. So Grakthar is always green focused, and his is like kind of barbarian weaponry, right? He walks around, and he even has a belt, almost thematic to what's the boss in Zelda that has like all the weapons as a necklace or like a belt?
Hinox.
Hinoxes. So
The
kind of
big Cyclops dudes, and you like shoot them in the eye.
and it's almost like where some things have scale birds or scale jet planes in the case of Doxplosion. Grekthar has scale weapons and swords just like that's on him as part of his outfit, which we always really liked. And this kind of shows a little bit of that in his border around all of his spaces. Grekthar factory file we want to do. Where's Alana? She's on the top. Surprising no one. Alana tiles. So Alana focuses more on kind of vines and roses, meant to be a little more on the pink side, just because one thing we were working on is making so the color of the base dice will match the color scheme of the borders of each boss. So where Grekthar has green dice and Cthulhu has blue dice versus Nightmare that has purple dice, and kind of keeping all the different dice colors on theme with their special dice that you unlock as the game goes on. And Alana is more in the forest and has kind of more of the like more mystical area with all the rivers that are on in the game. Some of the more fantasy elements like castles and mystical trees that you see as well from her section of the map. Alana, and then we're going to do Mechbot Rulebook. We missed Doxplosion, I believe, is the only one we're missing. So let's finalize this. And Doxplosion has lightning. And she's in a lot more of there's in the Futuropolis area, there's a lot of like more sci-fi tech stuff that look more like, you know, future metropolis, utopia spaces, but then there's some like more industrial, pollution focused areas. And we wanted to make sure more of Doxplosion spaces were kind of in that area, showing more of the like the evil side of the future in general. And yeah, and obviously some of these spaces are reused in the land tiles because we wanted to make sure just we're focusing on cool buildings in both, and that allows us to kind of play up into maybe more of the story of some of the different spaces in each boss's area, and that you can kind of extrapolate based on what parts of the maps are called. And then the last thing I want to show, I think before we're kind of done going through all the factory updates and kind of walk through the schedule, is the factory packs, or the factory proofs. So now the last kind of piece that we want to talk about is a little bit of where we're at, and kind of go through the process. So obviously we finished the Kickstarter end of 2018, and then going into the next year, we planned on hopefully releasing it by the end of 2019 was the original goal. What ended up happening is due to the tariff kind of situation, we ended up having to kind of reconfigure the costing on everything and how everything was being built out. And so that kind of took more time than we expected. And at the same time, we were kind of just dealing with the spring summer side of our business in a way that made it so that things were just getting delayed. And so then by the time we kind of figured that out, we got in this year, we were planning on launching for the summer. Because at that point, it made more sense just to launch at the beginning of the summer. And then COVID happened, which made it so, A, there's just no shows. So the original reasons we were launching into those became less of a need and rush. And then on top of that, just our factory shut down for all of basically December through April. And then we were out of office from March until modern day times. But through that process, we've decided, let's focus on a Christmas launch. Let's focus on a fall launch. A lot of our retailers look at fall launches. And so we wanted to make sure that we had product in their hands enough time for Christmas. And so we have begun the process of kind of making sure we deliver on time. We already start tooling. What I'm about to show you is kind of our first looks that we got from the tooling molds. So basically before they cut tooling, they do kind of these red wax molds. To kind of make sure all of this stuff will work and the way that the assembly would work functions. And then once we approve those, they go into tooling. We've approved those, I think, 2 weeks ago now. And so we're now in the midst of tooling. And for those who don't know what tooling is basically these big hard metal blocks that pieces are cut out of or sculpted out of, and then when they put together, they inject plastic at very high temperatures and speeds to fill out that space, and then they pull it apart, and then the different pieces come out, and then you can glue together. And so we're in the middle of cutting tooling, which is the last really major step for battle bosses. The other element was all the graphical needs, and so we finalized updates on graphics this week. We were aiming before this week. The last piece was the rulebook. We were done with pretty much everything else last week. We caught one typo when we were looking through the rulebook. But the rulebook also was finalized this week, so those are also off to the factory to print. And so based on timelines, we are on schedule for an October delivery to backers. And so these are the different, the wax, what's the word? I keep saying wax sculpts, but it's not it, Max?
Yeah, those are red wax.
Red wax.
So first you start off with, based on the digital files, they create the red wax, which is going to be like the hyper detailed version of it. Once it's approved and stuff, then they'll make a mold off of the red wax, and then after that, then you'll get into the T1s and the T2s, which are kind of like almost like rough draft versions of how it would look as if it was plastic. So T1s would be more like what we call whites, which are almost like 3D prints. And then after that, like the colored paint op versions that you were holding up earlier, those are kind of like in between the red wax and whites. We made it, like the factory made it as like a silicone mesh, just so that it's a little bit more detailed than 3D prints. But the one that comes after that is the T2s, and those are like using the molds to create a simulation of injection molding, but it's not. It's just using a really rough material. But anyways, red wax is like the most detailed version because molds are made from it, and we're really excited to see those. Yeah, but they're super brittle.
Yeah. So these aren't finalized versions. The final versions will be much more or much less brittle than both versions that we have available to us right now. One thing I want to bring up is, especially at the beginning of the slides or what I was showing, there's a lot of images of these minions. These were the Kickstarter exclusives. So Kickstarter, as part of kind of the conversation of like, you know what, we feel bad that this has taken so long. This is something that we made exclusive to Kickstarter. So all of these really, really intricate minions that kind of come with the bosses, from Fae warriors to drones to the goblins and zombies, are all exclusive to Kickstarter. And have turned out really great as well. And then you can kind of see the size comparison here.
And a lot of the sculpts are broken. That's because the red wax is so fragile. It won't be as fragile in production.
Correct. And some of it is to also show just glue points. So the reason that for instance, the fairy warrior is broken out is...
There are some other ones that I think are actually broken.
Yeah. This one's to show, like, see, the wing will be glued onto our back. You're kind of seeing how these are put together.
Yeah. Right, and they can't technically they can't put them in, like, for example, the pirate is missing his hands. They didn't want to push it in because it'll snap the joints, and they need those joints to be exposed for when they make those mold trays.
Right. So we'll get to that, and you can see, like, and this also kind of shows the scale, right? Like, we were talking about the witch preview that we showed, and the witch is meant to be the size of this goblin, a little bit bigger because the goblin's a little bit shorter than other minions on purpose. But the idea is the bosses are these giant beings, and then the minions are all these little small, tiny characters. Here's Cthulhu, looking all Cthulhu-y. I really love the craggliness of Cthulhu that we ended up with as kind of a way to differentiate with other bosses, how he like almost seems to be made out of stone. Captain Boat, which I believe is a fan favorite.
Definitely. Okay, so I guess that mast is on purpose. It looked broken to me. That's why I was giving the caveat.
This is the one that I think is broken. See how that snapped?
It looks snapped, yeah, but that's because it's a weaker material than what it's actually going to be made of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this also, when you see that it snapped, they know that they need to structurally make this a little bit stronger than other pieces as well.
Right.
One of the changes we had to do with Ryu that did get changed between this sculpt and that one is we realized that the tail sticks out really far to the back, and the wings were a little bit larger than we wanted, so we kind of brought her in to tighten her up. So she just fits on a board a lot better. So
Yeah,
her
you
tail
can
now.
see her tail is like curved around instead of going straight out. The wings are a little more subtle, but you can kind of tell.
Yeah. And then Nightmare. And his shadow minion. Mechabot. And a drone. And then these are the bases that they'll be on. So you can see here, we used clear bases for these pieces. So they'll be this. What's the material? The final material, Max?
Well, yeah. So the final material is a PVC. It's a 95. Wait, sorry. It is a 98-degree heated PVC plastic. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to remember the exact degree because we had it made a little bit harder versus softer because usually it's a 95 degree to 96 degree, but 98 degree makes it more detailed.
Okay, got it. And I think that's the majority of kind of big updates as far as production goes. As far as and rollout, so the way that the plan is working is right now for people that are watching that are not Kickstarter backers, you can pre-order at kess.co/shop. You can buy the 4 retail versions. You can pre-order them so that once we deliver to Kickstarter backers towards October, starting in November, we'll start shipping people's pre-orders to them so that they can also join into the launch.
Do you want to put the shop link in the chat?
Yes.
I've got it. I'm doing it right now.
Are you on
keep
Restream,
talking.
Sam?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Then.
I give him super access to chat so he can access all of the locations.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Continue.
No, yeah. So kess.co/shop, you can go right now and pre-order battle bosses. There are 4 different bosses. Or sorry, all 8 bosses are available in individual packs. We would obviously recommend buying 2 at once. And then you can also buy the deluxe version there as well to pre-order. That also helps us know how much we need to bring in, and we obviously really appreciate it. And what we want more than anything is this community to grow. This was our first Kickstarter, and obviously there's some shows in that where we had to kind of create a production line from grasp, and that took longer than expected. But as we're now getting close to launch, we're really excited to get the game copies out to people's hands so they can play with it, they can start doing previews of it, and start getting their friends involved. So we're really excited with kind of the response. The response at every show we've been to has been so amazing. Just people love the way it looks. People love the graphics of it. People also just love the gameplay. The amount of people that have come up and been really excited just to play and how easy it is to pick up, but how much depth there is to it has been really exciting. So we're really excited for the launch to happen and to get kind of the game into people's hands. We think it's turned out really, really well. Anything else, Michael?
Production is not really my area of expertise. As far as why did we design the map the way we did, or why did we design the terrain tiles the way we did, I can speak to that. But I'm just along for the ride when it comes to production. Just make the ideas that Alex and I have and put them on cardboard. That's the
Max. Anything else you want to touch upon before we sign off?
No, you actually you went through everything in the greatest of detail, and I think people are going to be really excited when they get it because it feels like a long production, but I think we went through everything and just made a product that everyone's going to be happy about, not just from from gameplay, but from also component wise and just seeing those bosses, especially next to the minions, are going to be really awesome.
We're really excited. And so one thing, just kind of updating on the GenCon schedule, I'm going to bring it up right now so everyone can see it. All of these things. Here we go. So as you can see, we just have a bunch of stuff happening all week. So all weekend. So for GenCon Online, it's kind of this big. This got really truncated. There we go. We have a bunch of stuff happening today. We will be previewing Alana Fae Empress gameplay. Me and my wife Whitney will be battling her against some of the other bosses, showing kind of different strategies she plays with, and kind of how it plays. That'll be happening today at 3 p.m. PDT. which is apparently what it is. I put PSD in one of my posts, which is just the file type for Photoshop. But
12 Pacific, 6 Eastern, or 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern is what we're
Yes.
going to call it.
Yes,
We don't need to say all the letters. They don't have it. They don't mean anything.
yeah. So Pacific time,
Pacific and Eastern.
West Coast, 3 p.m. We'll be previewing Alana Fae Empress gameplay. Then tomorrow at 10 a.m. we'll be doing kind of a Battle Bosses design Q&A live with the MMCast podcast. So Ben Bateman will be joining us to kind of host a panel on the design of Battle Bosses and how everything was created and the processes we went through. We'll then be following that up with the first time we show kind of live gameplay of Nightmare. So we'll do a Nightmare gameplay walkthrough, talking about some of his key cards and doing kind of what we do with Alana later today. We'll then kind of continue that to more gameplay. The plan is to just kind of play games of Battle Bosses as the day goes on the stream. And then we'll be interviewing Blacklist Games. We partnered with them on releasing a Contra board game where we helped kind of do the licensing part of it and some of the distribution, and they're doing the game development and launch. And so we want to interview them just to walk through kind of their process of developing games.
Adam and Lee Sadler are the designers of the Contra board game. They also have a bunch of cool game credits. They did a bunch of stuff with Blacklist, like Street Masters and Brook City. And they also did some stuff for Fantasy Flight before that. But they have a pretty good resume of games, and we're excited to be working with them on Contra.
Yep, and then on Saturday, we'll be previewing the 2v2 arena game mode live for the first time. So that'll be the first time people get a look at that kind of big two-player mode. And then we'll continue that with more Battle Bosses live gameplay throughout the day. And then Sunday, we'll be doing one final AMA, kind of more of a format for chat to come in, say hi, talk about any other Battle Bosses questions they might have.
We're posting videos of a lot of this stuff around the internet whenever we're done with it. We're just going to throw this stream, for example, up on YouTube, and people can watch it if they missed the live stream. Correct. And so the AMA is kind of a way where if you watched a VOD of the production update or a VOD of the D20 Kickstarter announcement or something, and you have some questions but you weren't able to make the stream, Sunday 10 a.m.
Yep, that's
come on by and you can ask us whatever live on Twitch.
Yep, we'll answer as many questions as possible. And then we'll do some more Battle Bosses free play, maybe do some multiplayer, maybe roll back another game of 2v2, depending on how people are feeling and what people want to see. And then we'll be restreaming from our YouTube channel the 3v3 gameplay that we did before the Kickstarter. So you can kind of get a view on that whole gameplay. And
it's well produced with, like, you know, it's edited and it looks really nice. I mean, there's something to be said for a live stream where you can ask questions, but the 3v3, we put a lot of effort into making it look very nice. It's got like player interviews where like people talk about the plays that they made, why they made it. And so if you have any interest in what arena mode looks like, I highly recommend the 3v3 video. It's very good. Yeah. It's actually on YouTube right now. You could just go watch it, or you could tune in and watch it live, and people can chat about it, and we'll probably pop into the chat.
Yeah, while it's playing, we'll be there in the chat, hanging out, answering questions, and maybe I'll like jump in and give audio commentary at a moment if it's needed. But it'll be at a bare minimum, will be on chat.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. This video will be up on YouTube, as Michael said. And thank you everyone who watched there as well. And we will see you guys and girls and friends at 3 p.m. this afternoon to show off Alana Fae Empress gameplay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.